Welcome back. I'm Caroline Best of the Tao of Horsemanship, and y'all know who my lovely co-host is, Sabrina Arbogast.
Hi guys.
Yay. Okay, we're starting a little bit early, no big deal, because we record everything and archive them. So for those of you that are new, we keep our podcasts, our weekly podcasts up that week for a week, because we're doing this every week now. And then we load them, archive them on YouTube, our YouTube channel. And so you can find all of them there. So that's great. All right, so I've just got my list from last week because I want to do a little bit of a review. For those of you that are new and or returning, welcome back and welcome. We are all about everything horses and more. Podcasts live every week and streamed live to our Tao of Horsemanship Facebook page, so that way we can reach more people. We're all about educating, liberating, and inspiring horse owners around the world. Join our live radio show and our revolution in horse care, handling, training, and achieve the life, relationship, and ride of your dreams. Every week we bring you education, expert advice, and inspiration about horses, training, and living authentically. We spend time diving in deep, talking about complex areas in horsemanship, such as horse psychology, biological behavior and nurture, modification, training, the real secrets to being safe with horses, and how to achieve the best connection and relationship and ride of your dreams. And that's not all. We also get real and honest about our personal lives and experiences, sharing what's worked and what hasn't about everything related to horses and more. So again, our weekly podcasts are streamed live to our Tao of Horsemanship Facebook page. We are, last week was our first week where we had 3 in a row, huge, tons of downloads. I think we had over 550 downloads so far. Not every week are we going to be able to do 3 of them, but we're going to give it our best shot the month of September, and then we're going to reevaluate and see where our energy and time is. But wow, we love this. I just love sharing so much of my experience and knowledge with all of you, and not to mention that this is definitely a revolution. A lot of what I talk about, a lot of you feel innately and intuitively akin to, it resonates with you. It's just not being talked about or shared or taught out there as far as how to be with your horse, how to connect with your horse, and develop your horse. Develop and work with your horse, AKA the same as training. So last week, or this week, we're going to be talking today and tomorrow. This is really great. We're going to be diving in today and tomorrow about starting young horses, part 1 today. And today's discussion is all about how to start your horse and when to start your horse. So I'm going to dive in deep about, I get these questions, I love it all the time. How do you start a young horse, Caroline? And how's big? It's a big abyss. And when do you start them? What's the best age? And so forth and so on. So we're going to dive in deep about that today. That'll be part 1. And then last week, we spent 3 days talking about, for those of you, how we connect. We really dived in deep last week, starting with the science behind connection. You know, what really happens inside the horse, the science of it. And so much of this has to do with the limbic system, the nervous system within the horse, and how, you know, how that affects the ability to connect with them. And what's important, what does connection mean to horses? And so we talked a lot about social connection and social engagement and relationship, and why that's so important to horses, and how that all, you know, ties in with the nervous system, and, you know, how the body regulates. We talked a little bit about trauma last week, and that's one of my specialties. And then we ended with how does becoming attuned develop trust in our horses. So last Monday, it was how we connect, the science and emotions behind connection, or why is connection so important to humans and horses. Then Tuesday, we talked about understanding social connection and social engagement in horses and why it's important to training and how it works. And then Wednesday, everything in my work and the way that you guys are getting to know me is a building block. So everything builds upon itself. So we're not just pulling these topics out of the air, especially during the week. They all build and support each other, and they get deeper. So then Wednesday was how do we become attuned? So we talked about this in last week's podcast. My gosh, about semantic experiences and experiencing life somatically, viscerally, which is where the horse lives. We talked about being intuitive and what that means, and sensory aware and sensory processing. Yeah, pretty cool stuff. And those podcasts were a good hour. Yeah, it's nice just trying to keep these within an hour, and that's why we're spreading them out into several days instead of 2 to 3 hours per podcast. So hope you guys join in, and I hope you share and let other people know about this information. So that was last week. And then we always talk about our free videos that we have on YouTube. Every week we produce a snippet, which means a short version of the full length video that you can subscribe to in my video library, Everything Horses and More. And usually the full length videos are anywhere from 20 to 30 plus minutes. So they're real training videos. They're not just 5 to 8, 10-minute videos that just give you some tips. But in the free video on YouTube, we try to take some important pieces and share with you. And so last week, we've been doing every week now for a while, our beginner rider series videos. So common mistakes beginner riders make. And I can't even remember what last week was. Last week, what did we release? The whip.
This week's, I'm sorry.
No, this week's is the whip.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so what was last week?
You asked me to.
I know, I don't even remember. But you guys can check them out on YouTube, and they'll be under the beginner rider series. But yeah, this week we're going to be releasing for Friday why I use a dressage whip, what type of whip I use, why I use it, and then how to use it with your horse. And so that's going to be pretty cool, because I am a firm believer in that piece of equipment, and I am a holistic practitioner, and I teach. My whole training revolves around being holistic. So I'm considering the horse's emotions, the spiritual aspects, relationship, mental and physical. And so a lot of people that are attracted to this style of training or developing or working with your horses, they're like, a whip? Why do you need a whip? Well, you should check out the video, because it's a very important piece of equipment. And especially when you're working on the biomechanics of movement with your horse on the ground through my lunging styles, you need the length of the long lunge whip. It's a very awesome tool to help guide your horse's movement, as well as the other practices that I teach. It's an extension of who you are. And unfortunately, so many horses, it's used incorrectly, and they fear it, and they've been abused by it. And so being a trauma rehabilitation specialist, I've had to do so much work with horses with whips to not desensitize them, but to change their association and experience with the whip, to make it a positive association and experience. I had to do that before I could even use the whip as an aid to help them learn or to help guide the body. So it's a very important piece of equipment, both the lunge whip and the riding whip. But this week's video is just about the riding whip.
Last week was pre-flight safety.
Oh, thank you, love. Yeah, so last week, the last 2 weeks, we were doing my pre-flight to riding. And so last week, we specifically worked on what do I do with the horse when I first get on. I do a set of pre-flight check systems. Where's my horse's mind? Where's the response level? Are they with me? Are they connected to me, to the subtlety of my aids while I'm just sitting on them? When I first get on, we're not riding yet. In the week before, it was a body scan. So I'm teaching you all the areas for the rider, what do I need to check before I go into my ride? And this is the beginner rider series. We're going to be releasing it as a full course when we're done with all of the snippets in on YouTube, but it's also set up as building blocks. So we begin at the beginning, and it's about riding. So you're not going to get into any groundwork. You're not going to get into anything about, the bridle or learning the saddle and all the pieces of the saddle and the pieces of the bridle and how to groom a horse and how to handle a horse. It's not about that. It's about the rider, but it's going to begin with, the important lessons when you first get on. So it's really cool. It's pretty deep. There's nothing else like it out there. There's a lot of beginner rider videos, but not a series that really dives in deep. And, being a pioneer in the work that I do, doing it differently and in the best interest of the horse, and offering both the horse and the human the opportunity to dive in as deep as you want to go. And with the relationship, it will make your, oh my gosh, learning together amazing. And that's really what it's all about. It's about a process. And we're going to talk about that with starting young horses today. It's really about the journey, isn't it? It's not about the destination. And don't get me wrong, I have a destination. Every horse I've ever worked with, and I've worked with thousands, they've all gone through the same program. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. The same training curriculum. They've all had to go to school, the same school. Every horse that I've ever started or had to restart and rehabilitate has always gone through the same school. They've got to learn the same things, because it makes them, and this is my training system, it makes them well-rounded. And we talked a little bit about that last week. It makes them well-rounded. There's a level of versatility with the horse in what they're able to do or what they are willing to do. That's a key word right there. And well-rounded also means that the horse has a pretty solid foundation, solid on the ground, consistent and solid in the way that you're handling them and handling situations, not to mention riding. And so that's a really important thing, is talking about a riding foundation. And in this training system of mine, this program of mine, it is revolutionary because nobody else is out there teaching it like this, meaning I'm teaching you how to work with your horse. It's not teaching you how to train your horse. And we've got to really start getting away from that word training, because it just the language. So often our language, all of us, well, I'm really working hard to get away from it, because it pigeonholes us and it gives us a set mindset. As soon as you say training, you start thinking linearly, and that's the way we're designed as humans. And you start thinking, oh my God, training, that means it's bam, 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 bam. And we get so linear in our focus, and that's not where we should be. So, learning needs to be linear, meaning, we're pretty focused on the outcome, the goal, the destination. But learning also goes in many directions, doesn't it? Especially when we as learners, human learners, get into a challenge with our learning, or we don't understand something, we can't figure it out. Then the learning changes and we're stuck. And so we have to try a nonlinear approach. What can we do? What can we do that's going to help us get to the same outcome? Because for a lot of us, we're all different learners, pretty much. You can group us to some point, but we all learn differently. And our personal experiences also shape the way we are as a learner. It's not just our genes and our traits and our DNA and our nature. And well, you're just like your dad in your learning, or you're just like your mom, or whatever, you're just like your brother. It's also our experiences. And I'm bringing all of this up as an example and to set the stage for this is what I've experienced with horses. Thousands of horses, they're no different. And so while we talked a little bit about intelligence last week with horses, mostly about social intelligence, we didn't really get into the cognitive. I'm always bringing that up though. And I'm sure we're going to have a podcast on the actual intellectual cognitive abilities of the horse, but I don't want that to, I I don't want us to get stuck there either and pigeonhole the horse as far as their ability cognitively to learn. So getting back to the topic that I was talking about, this being not just a revolution, but also the language, training. What about learning? Don't you want to learn with your horse? What about learning how to work with your horse? How would you like to have a training system that gives you a roadmap, a guide, a step-by-step guide, and all the support you need between written materials and me as your coach, and then the lessons? So you've got the guide, you've got the system, you've got the curriculum, but it's how you go about it. And we're all going to get stuck. We're going to get stuck. Our horses are going to get stuck. We're going to get stuck together. And so you've got to change that training, because it's like, boom, it becomes real mechanical. We become so bullseye about that. Oh, it's got to get done. And it's got to get done this way. And I don't have time for it to take the time. It's just got to get done. So that's where the revolution comes in with my work. We're going to get to that destination, but it's how you get to the destination that matters most. And especially when you want to continuously, start developing, then you want to nurture and maintain that amazing connection and relationship. And again, we have to understand that horses are very nonlinear and humans are very linear. And so just by bringing up those two words, it really sets us apart, especially as learners and especially as the human wanting to train their horse. That's where we get stuck, and that's where we get screwed up all the time. And unfortunately, most of the training programs or courses, whatever you're following, it doesn't really matter what discipline out there, from eventer to hunter jumper to dressage to natural horsemanship to this to that. So much of it is because we've developed it very linear. And the horse doesn't live in a linear world. And to me, that's the number one problem with horse training today. Just wrapping our brain around, what does that mean, Caroline? Because we're so forceful. We're always trying to make it happen. We've got an agenda. We've got a time limit. And I'm here to tell you, you shouldn't have a time limit, especially when you're developing a young horse and or restarting a troubled horse. So let's start this discussion. Starting young horses, part 1. How and when do you start them? How do you start them? When do you start them? So there are 2 areas I focus on when raising a young horse and developing them. And when I say raising a young horse, it could be from imprinting them at birth to acquiring them as a weanling, a yearling, or 2-year-old. We're going to start off with 2 really important areas. And I never forget either one of these while I'm developing. I don't forget them. I don't just start with these 2 areas and then leave them behind and move on to other stuff. These 2 areas they remain during the entire development. The first one is bonding and relationship. So we start there and we nurture that, and we carry a bond and a relationship throughout all of our work together, throughout all of the habituation and the training and the development of that young horse. And we're going to talk about why a little later on. The second area is you need to create good habits or habit modification for these young horses. So for all of you out there that have children, you understand what it's like. You got to start, and it's all age appropriate too. You can't give them too much at too early of an age, and they're not going to be able to retain it. They'll absorb it like a sponge, but they're like, squirrel, 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 what's over there? What's over there? You know, you tell them one thing and they forget it, or they get a piece of it and they forget the rest of it. And you got to tell them 100 times sometimes. We'll talk about that too. So with young minds, it's not that they're stupid. It's not that they're not smart, horses or young kids. And I can't remember what research it is. I'd have to look at my resources to find it. and I've always said this, to me, a young horse's mind, or a healthy young adult horse that hasn't been tainted or screwed up, and there's very few of those, they have the cognitive abilities of a 7 or 8-year-old child. The really smart ones do, big time, and they can problem solve. And the other fact is horses have memories like elephants, okay? So they don't forget a thing. It only takes one time to make it wrong, one time to do it wrong. And if you don't make it right, they're going to carry that with them, just like a young child. They'll never forget that you talked to them harshly. The horse will never forget that you hit him that one time, either will your child. And so I love, when I'm developing my students to learn how to train their horses, I love to bring all of this up, because it's really important to set the foundation in your mind, your mindset, about how you want to go into this training, developing of the young horse, starting the young horse, how you want to go into it, and how you want to nurture it. Because it's going to be a long time, people. And this is what pisses me off about training young horses. And I'll get started on that a little later during this discussion. So it doesn't matter how young your horse is. Just know that they're not going to fully mature emotionally, mentally, and physically till about the age of 10. We already know scientifically that their bones, specifically their spine, doesn't reach maturity until the age of 7. The age of 7. And look what we're doing to these young horses at 2, as far as riding, in all disciplines. Makes me sick. So that's why we are pioneering. That's why it's a revolution. Things have got to change. All right. So what should a young horse learn right away? And this is, again, starting from imprinting. Anytime you get the young horse, doesn't matter whether you get them as a foal, a newborn, because you've got the mama, or a weanling, or a yearling, or a 2-year-old. What should that horse start learning right away? How to bond with you, how to have a relationship, a connection, a social connection with you. So social engagement and connection with humans is so important. And unfortunately, a lot of our young horses are robbed of that experience, not just with people, but with other horses. They're taken away from their mothers way too young. And I don't know of any young baby that isn't stressful to. And so you guys, one of the things you've got to realize, if you don't know this, is in the wild, you know, the babies, the young horses stay with the herd and the mother in the wild at least until the age of 2. They're still suckling at the age of 2. The mom's starting to wean them off. You want to know why? Because the mother knows how important this is to the young horse's mind, not to mention the antibodies and the nutrients, but to the mind. Come on, they already know this. So around the age of 2, especially the young colts, it's time to get the hell out, because we don't want any inbreeding. There's only one stallion, right? And then often the young fillies, they may leave, they may get called and stolen by young stallions, rogue stallions looking to form their own band of herd of mares. But often the young fillies, if they do go out and get impregnated, they will come back. They will bring their pregnant selves back, because family is so important. Those dynamics and relationships that they have created are so important to them. Not to mention, this is what makes horses so socially intelligent. You know, it's kind of like you feeling most at home and comfortable in your own family dynamic, because it's comfortable. You grew up a certain way. This is the way things are done. So if you've got the matriarch lead mare and the stallion, who do predominantly mate for life, that's pretty cool too. They form that kind of a partnership for life. They raise that herd a certain way. And so those pregnant fillies will come back to be with the matriarch and the matriarchal society of mares, their band of mares, so that they can all raise their babies together. And they all do. Often they'll allow their babies to suckle from them. The mares will fight off stallions. I mean, they're very protective. They rule, they reign everything. And it's kind of interesting when you think about the level of courage and fight that's even in these wild mares. And then you think about why people have so many people have trouble with mares in general, domesticated mares. And they just don't understand innately, instinctively, how these horses are hardwired. The sex is hardwired. I mean, these mares are just, you'll see, we have footage of it. I can find it again. It's on YouTube, where pregnant mare was giving birth and she strayed too far and she was by herself and she just gave birth and had a newborn a couple of hours old, and about 5 rogue stallions came up and they don't care. They would have killed the baby. And here she is trying to fight them off of herself and the baby. And she's running around and kicking and doing everything she can. And this is going on for at least 5-10 minutes. But guess who comes to save her? The band of mares and their babies. Mm-hmm. They all come and they kick ass and kick those stallions out of there. And then they help the baby and they help the mama. And it's just so beautiful, you guys. There's so much to learn from horses. It's unbelievable. So I give a lot of the history and I talk a lot about theory and the concepts and principles behind stuff, and as much history as I possibly can, because I'm the one that has met thousands of students, and you guys don't know this stuff. You don't know anything about it because it's not being populated out there in general horsemanship or in general training. There's not enough time spent educating horse owners about stuff like this. Everybody's so quick to want to get it done and do it, and we need to think, and we need to understand a lot of the history and the dynamics and the instincts and what's really innate within horses and what really drives them, because it will give us such a deeper appreciation for how we go about working with them. So that's why I bring it up. So bonding and friendship is top for horses, and this is what makes a horse feel safe. It's not safety in numbers. It's not the roof over their head. It's not about the food. They need all of those things. But their hierarchy of needs. So that's number one. So what should a young horse learn right away? They need to be able to bond with you. They need to be able to trust you. They need to be able to feel safe and comfortable with you. That's number one. Number two, within reason, depending on the age, they need to start learning how to respect your space. And this is the language of equus. So if you've spent time studying wild horses, if you've spent time studying a band of mares and their foals, domesticated, wild, if you spent time studying horses, this will all make sense. Healthy horses though, I've studied crazy horses too. That's part of my specialty, but you understand how good a good mama is. She lets the baby, just like we will. We'll let our babies grab on us, and of course they're going to cry and they're going to experience things and they're going to need us. And then we're also slowly, when it's time appropriate, we're going to start to teach them some boundaries, and that's really important to horses. And so unfortunately, we acquire horses that are screwed up, even handling young horses. I can't tell you how many young horses I've started, even at 8 months, just getting handled in consistent habits, and they are afraid of people, or, this, that, and the other has been done to them that's damaged them a little bit. It's really sad. And when people are teaching horses to respect space, they're just so aggressive about it. And if you start slowly and quietly and you build upon that with a very, very young horse, it just becomes second nature to that young horse to read your expressions and to read your body language, so that you don't have to use big tools or get really big. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen with these young horses. Breeders are breeders, they're not trainers. And so you know, the horses are usually the babies manhandled and pushed around, made to lift up their feet, yanked on, chains, you name it. But respect is number 2. Now, yep, I'll move on. So one of the things I want to add about respect for space is young horses naturally play. And when they play, especially boys, young colts before they're gelded, but boys in general, the play drive is they're very mouthy, much more so than a young filly, much more so. And the mouthy has so much to do with the sex and with the drive of the boy, not just in mating, but when you geld them, they're still very playful and mouthy. And there's a lot to read about a playful young horse. That tells you a lot about that horse. It tells you a lot about their maturity level. Most of the time, a very playful young horse is a very immature horse. And so if you want to start them under saddle at the age of 3 or 4, and they're still real mouthy and real fractious, it's just going to take longer. You could start them slowly, definitely, but just don't expect the same results with a horse that's a little more serious, a little more focused, has a higher work drive, not a play drive. So, but all young horses, there's a reason why they're mouthy. And so I get these questions like, what do I do with my young horse? It wants to bite and chew on everything. Well, there's teethings, just like a young puppy, a young kitten, a young child. You've got teething issues going on. You've got their familiarity. So especially with a young horse, when they're mouthy, it's part of becoming familiar. See, they've got whiskers for a reason. And then they've got blind spots, so they can't see right below their mouth. So whiskers help them feel, and then they've got hundreds of nerves and feelings. That's why some horses can manipulate a snap really easily and undo gaits, like my 2 boys used to do all the time. So, you know, their muzzles, depending on the size of the muzzle, you know, how long it is and how, you know, coordinated motor skills that horse has, they can do a lot with that muzzle. So the muzzle is a very interesting part of the horse's body. And it's natural for young horses to play. This is what helps them develop a social class system. For the lack of a better word, we say pecking order. And pecking order is important to young horses. And unfortunately, when we form bonds with them and friendships as humans, it's hard to find that balance of love and leadership. But it's important because you want that bond. Oh, you want it. And you want them to want to touch you and play with you respectfully and nibble on you. But you guys have got to find those boundaries. You've got to be like, okay, this is enough. This is what's acceptable. Just like mama horse, I'm only going to let you for so long beat up on me before I bite you or kick you. And so we don't want to be biting or kicking our young horses, but that's where our tools or our equipment will come in, because we can use rhythmic pressure, we can use steady pressure, we can use all sorts of forms to discourage the young horse, to redirect the young horse. Unfortunately, it takes a lot of consistency and a lot of patience, you guys, with these young ones. And that's what's missing in a lot of our training, is there's just so much force and just so quick. Nobody has the time, nobody has the patience. I also forgot to mention that we do take questions, okay? This is always open to you guys. So if I'm on a roll here and I don't take a break, Sabrina knows to raise her hand and remind me that we've got a question. So don't hesitate to ask questions. You're not interrupting me. I just might wait a little bit. So that's a question I get all the time, is my horse is so playful. You guys have to be really careful. You don't want your young horses learning how to jump on top of you. That's what they're going to do naturally. So a lot of what I teach in my Mastery membership program, which is for all ages, disciplines, breeds, and types of horses, because we start on the ground and we teach all of this, is I'm all about being preventative. I'm all about not trying to overcorrect or correct the young horse. I'm all about educating the horse. So as soon as I get a horse is new to me, doesn't matter what age, we got to get a couple of things understood. You know, one, I'm here. I'm always here for you. I want to develop a friendship with you, a relationship with you. And second, I need to make sure that you respect me so that I don't get hurt. I don't get run over, whatever, kicked, bit, nothing. And again, this comes into a lot of love and leadership abilities. I'm always there for you. I'm always thinking about you, horse, but I also need you to start thinking about me and what's appropriate when you're with a person. We're like 1/10 the weight when you become an adult, and strength. So respect for space is second. Third, natural sensitizing. We always hear desensitizing. What about sensitizing? Horses are sensitive by nature, and each horse as an individual has a different sensitivity level, just like we do. So what does that mean? Sensitizing. This is when you gradually, slowly teach your young horse how to respond to pressure. How to respond to pressure. You want to make them sensitive to pressure. See, it's innate in young horses to be oppositional to pressure. That's why they pull back and push through and want to run you over. So pressure, they have to get used to pressure. And unfortunately, with so much of our training, I don't care what discipline it is, even natural horsemanship bastardizes this and abuses this concept. We don't teach newer young horses about pressure. We just start applying it. And we either scare the hell out of them and then we go into desensitizing, or we deaden and dull them. They just check out, go on autopilot, or they just check out because it's too much. They're overwhelmed and overfaced by it. So pressure is an everyday occurrence for all of us in life, including the horse. But horses by nature are instinctively hardwired to avoid pressure, claustrophobic pressure. Oppositional, if a predator comes, they what? To kill them, whether it's a lion or a wolf, what are they going to do? Or a cougar, they're going to come for their jugular, or they're going to go back where their pole is to take them down. Because behind their ears, their pole area is their sense of balance. So if a horse, if they get the pole, or they get the jugular, or they get the flank, the tender, or the Achilles above the hock, the horse is a goner. So what is a horse instinctively taught to do when they feel pressure there? So now we've got the kicking area. We've got above the hock or the flank, a young horse. They feel pressure back there. What are they going to do? Kick. What are they going to do when they feel it above their head? We always want them what? To lower their head. What about underneath where they can't see? They're taught to push into that or pull back. So pushing in is to crush the predator. How many of you have had a new horse or a young horse and exposed to your dogs? And the first thing they do is try to run your dog down and stomp on them or kick them. So these are instinctive, and we've got to understand this when we go into sensitizing our young horses, not desensitizing. Ooh, here's the counterintuitive. This is where it's gone wrong, you guys. This is the bastardization. This is so misinterpreted and skewed. Desensitizing. No, we want to sensitize them to pressure, get them used to it, and in a friendly way, in a slow way. We don't want to overwhelm them or overface them. So I'm bringing all of this up because these are also the core areas that go wrong right away. And then we get these young horses and they are Fruit Loops. They're really tough to work with, to train, and then we send them off to trainers. See, everybody should be able to develop their own horse. There should be no reason, but because 99% of our horses are so screwed up by this stuff from the beginning, and then they get passed on from one trainer to the other, and they get so many different messages and confusion. It's just unbelievable. It makes my heart and my head hurt thinking about it. So we want to sensitize. Yes, ma'am.
We have a question.
Okay, let me just finish two more. Thank you, Sabrina. So we want to sensitize them to pressure in a slow, gradual, with lots of feel and timing. Take your time, pay attention to how your young horse feels about pressure. So what if they want to kick at it for weeks or months? Take your time. How many people don't put up with that? And the horse is kicking, they either get punished, beaten, or like A young horse is bucking a lot. Oh, let's put a bucking strap on him. Guess what, guys? I did that. I was taught the same thing with Sundance because of the buck. Well, I quit that clinic. I almost threw up and cried. And this was a top certified trainer from one of the most popular natural horsemanship, Pirelli. Sorry, they should pay more attention to their instructors. Yep, it was horrific. And I mean, he wanted to keep my mare and everything. I spent 2 years getting the buck out of her, and she still has triggers. So Sabrina, when you see her flinch, when I haven't ridden her in a while, you know, we've all seen it. She still has triggers. She had triggers before I got her. That did not help. So you want to sensitize them. Steady pressure, rhythmic pressure, your feel to everything. Okay, so you got to kind of know how they're innately, instinctively hardwired. And then the last area is natural desensitizing to its surroundings, including your tools, your equipment, your gear, and stimulation. Basically include it as part of your everyday and don't avoid it. Don't overface them. Don't flood them with it, like so many idiots out there teaching you. If your horse is afraid, like my baby was afraid of bags, all right, there's a time when he got dangerous and was unmanageable around the noise of a bag. It's on YouTube. It's a 3-hour series. I had to do something about it. And then I left it the hell alone forever. And then bags were just a part of his everyday, eating, hearing, walking, everything. But you've got to make it natural. And so you can think outside the box and set this up. So if you notice that your young horse that you just inherited as a weanling is awfully spooky and reactive, then start thinking outside the box and make a plan. Put it on paper. Okay, I'm going to start putting all these things around their area so that they can get familiar with it and in an area that brings them comfort, whether it's food or other horses or around their stall or their water trough. I mean, how many of you have either done this or heard of this? The horse is afraid of the trailer. So we leave the trailer out in the pasture and we put food in it. We don't put any pressure on them. We just let them gradually figure it out. And they do. And they do. But it takes time, consistency, and patience. And there's a beautiful way of sensitizing them. Not really and desensitizing, but not in the way that we're used to. So also when you're desensitizing, if you've got an older, more experienced horse, include them in the process, okay? Because they're not gonna, if they're not afraid, obviously, horses learn from each other. They're social learners, big time. So they feed off the energy and they learn from each other. So that's a real bonus for you guys to consider. Yes.
Rebecca asks, will you talk about introducing bathing water, please?
Okay. Hi, Rebecca. This is our Rebecca?
Yes.
All right, great. So will I talk about introducing bathing and water? Absolutely. So let's just talk about bathing. It's kind of like my philosophy on feeding. When a horse is new to me, I never take my time to gradually switch them over to a new feed. I've never had a problem in the thousands of horses. So I'm setting this up for your mindset, you guys. I just switch them over. I've never had a problem. And now we're on an amazing organic, holistic food feeding program. So it's all natural. It's all alfalfa pellets. Okay, so let's talk about bathing. This is awesome. I don't take my time and start going up and down the legs with a soft spray. I don't care if the horse hates bathing and it comes to me as a 12-year-old, absolutely horrified. I'm not going to change. And it's worked in 10 minutes in every instance. So I do not tie, will not tie the horse. I will hold the horse. I will have spent time. I don't care if it takes days or weeks or months. First, I will spend time bonding and forming a relationship where that horse connects with me and feel safe and comfortable with me. That comes first. So I can know that it's a young horse that's never been bathed, or I can know it's a horse that's being restarted and is petrified of bathing. I will establish that relationship first. And what does that mean? It means that the horse comes to me, the horse is comfortable around me, I can touch the horse everywhere, it trusts me. I have to have some trust, you guys, or it's not going to work. I never tie them. Not right now. I want them to be able to move and move with me. I want to move with them. Okay, now we're ready for bathing. I'm paying attention to them the whole time. Okay, I'm grabbing the hose and I've got them on the lead rope, and I will allow them to back up, and I'll allow the lead rope to, feed out of my hand. I'm not going to force them there. I'm going to keep an eye on them, and I'm going to smile, and I'm going to keep reminding them of the relationship that they trust. So you've got to be really responsible and aware of how you show up during this process. Maybe I'll stop when I notice that the horse is just really trying, but they're petrified because they've never seen a hose. Maybe they haven't seen the wash rack before. It's all good. They're in there because they trust me, but now I'm adding to it. I'm adding stimuli. I'm adding new experiences, or I'm triggering past experiences. So you've got to take your time. But when I get ready to turn that water on, guess where it's going? Straight to their mouth. Yes, ma'am. So if I've got a horse, if I've got an open wash area and I know that horse might back up and bolt backwards, set yourself up for success. Maybe I'll put him in, 3 walls, but I don't want to get run down either. I want them to be able to move. Okay. I'm not here to trap them. So you don't want to tie them. You got to be safe. Why do you start with the mouth? Because that's the play area for a horse. And I don't want them running away from me. So, I have so much experience with this and has so much feel and timing. You're probably saying, well, how the hell do I do this, Caroline? I don't want to force them and manhandle them and hold them there and get on their case. I don't want to get run over. I don't want them running away from me and dragging me. You guys are going to have to figure it out, because it comes down to your skill level. I don't want to set you up for anything you can't handle, because it could get ugly. But I know my skill level. And so I'm going to talk about how I do it. Doesn't mean you guys are ready for this, including you, Rebecca. So I've gotten to know this horse, young or old. We have a pretty good relationship. Horse comes to me. Horse is pretty good with stuff that I do around and with him or her. And now I'm bringing the hose. And here comes the water. And it's going to be on a shower spray, and it's going to come right at their mouth. And they can back up, and I can feed the lead rope out, and I'm just going to keep smiling and going, it's okay. And I'm going to be going I'm not going to just be shoving it in their face. I'm going to be going all around their mouth, back and forth. It's okay. And then I might take it away. And then I'll bring it back up. So see what I'm bringing to the experience? It's okay. We're going to have fun with this. We have so much responsibility to these horses. They read everything. They feel everything, and they read everything. While this may sound a bit overwhelming for us and daunting and like, oh my God, can I be all that for my horse? Of course you can. It's built into us to be that way. Look how we are with little babies, baby anything. So even if it's an older horse that's traumatized, come in with that joy, come in with your heart connection, come in with a different approach. So as soon as we start putting it in the mouth, maybe, they're like, oh my God, just keep running it in the mouth, figure out how to get them to relax. Because as soon as that mouth starts to open up and relax, they are literally processing and releasing. Because they're not here all clenched and locked up in their mind and locked up in their jaw. Once that jaw relaxes, woo, they start to open up. And so that's how I start. And then from the mouth, it goes down the chest and the mouth again, and then down the leg and back to the mouth again. So I just don't stay, at the mouth and then move on to a whole nother body part. I'm going to keep going back to the mouth. I might stop. I might pet them for a while. I might give them a break. You guys are going to have to read all of this. Keep paying attention to your horse. They'll tell you everything you need to know. But it does take some experience, learning how to read them, and then what do you do with the information that you get. I teach all of this. Teach this in my mastery membership program, and then we have a Starting Your Young Horse course. And we're going to talk about our Starting the Young Horse course. Why I'm not recommending that, and I'm recommending the Mastery Membership program, is because the Starting Young course, while it dives in deep, and we have 3 different young horses we're working with, 3 very different. 2 out of those 3 are fucked up. 2 out of those 3 came with problems from their biological mother, and then problems from their handler, who didn't do anything wrong, but she tried to do some things. Both the 2 babies that Sabrina has and I have in this course came from the same owner, who is a good friend of mine. But she has no business trying to do what so many of you guys do out there without education. She watches the YouTube videos and it looks easy. It looks easy. Why? Because you only know what you know. You don't know what you don't know, meaning your trained eye is limited. It's limited to your personal experience. Do y'all get that? If you've never brown penned a horse or started a young horse, and you just start watching some random videos from 5 different trainers on starting young horses, and you go out there with no experience, you're only going to get what you were able to get from each one of those videos. And it's going to be a disaster. I know, because I'm the one that gets all these horses. Over the years, they've all come to me. Every type of breed, every age, and every problem. And some of them have been started by some of the top pros in our industry in all different disciplines. Yes, ma'am.
Atilia, what do you do when they try to bite and you do not have an 8 in your hand?
Hi, Atilia. Another Mastery member student. I love it, both Rebecca and Atilia. So this is where, Atilia, what do you do when the young horse, and you have a yearling, a little filly, a wild one, actually wild. What do you do when she starts to bite at you? So this is where I'm talking about prevention. Don't let it happen. So you guys have to set yourself up for success. And you wouldn't know that unless you learn it from me or you're a trainer like I am. So I wouldn't go in an area like that without setting myself up for success. And that means, obviously, I would have worked with her already to establish some understanding and respect for space. But if it was a first time and I just wanted to bond with her, and happens too, and get to know her and allow her in and get some information from her, I would have brought some tools, like a dressage whip, or you guys will see me carry these 2 to 3 foot buddy strings that I can also tie around my horse's neck for bridleless riding. And they're real thin. They're like the size of my pinky. And I'll just slip them through my belt loop or my belt to hold. And then I can just pull them right out. But I pull them out, it's rhythmic pressure. It's rhythmic pressure. I'm going to be twirling that. And if the baby's like at first either going to run away from it because it's stimuli and it scares them, they're not used to it, or they might be the type of baby where it doesn't scare them and you keep rhythmically hitting them with it, lightly tapping, and they're just taking it, doesn't bother them, then you'll get stronger and stronger. You got to find out what's going to work, because what's the purpose? You want them to back away. You want them to learn that every time you bring up rhythm or you bring up your energy, what's the cue? You got to condition them. And this is part of developing good habits. It takes a lot of consistency and repetition doing the same thing over for these young horses to start to get it. And the way I teach, the way you girls are learning in the Mastery Membership is it comes from here, from you first, right? Because we don't want to have to be using these days all the time. We want the language of Equus. We want to be as good as Mama was. So, you've got to get them tuned in to you, like, hey, no, and then bump, 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 bump. You guys can watch me in the video here, rhythm. And if that doesn't work, maybe tap, 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 tap on her neck, her muzzle. It's rhythm. Rhythm's a warning, okay? It's being assertive. Aggression is a slap. Aggression comes unannounced, unexpected, and that's what creates fear. So you never want to hit. It's always got to be rhythm. So you got to set yourself up for success and be preventative. So don't go in there And you wouldn't know that, now you do. So next time you can buy the buddy strings from the person that I buy all of my rope halters and lead ropes from, handcrafted jewels. You can email me and I'll send you the link to the website. But you can buy some cheap at Tractor Supply. Buy one of their cheap little carrot sticks or handy sticks and just take the string off. Or a 2 to 3 foot riding whip that you can just casually carry with you, not like this, but just carry it with you and then lift it up, tap, 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 tap. And of course, the program teaches you all of this. So it's a great question. Thank you, both of you. I hope my answers helped.
She said this is helpful. It's improved greatly. It's less than more. His body.
Okay, good. And then Rebecca about the bathing.
Yep, she said it's great.
Yeah, I mean, I know it sounds totally counterintuitive, but I'm telling you, you guys, I've tried all the old approaches with horses that were petrified, older horses of getting hosed, or a young one that acted. I mean, I used to gentle wild horses and they'd look at that like a snake coming, and you're trying to hose their legs. And I'm like, as soon as I can get the mouth, and they're like, oh, water, oh, water, and I'm bringing the relationship to it. It's a great approach, and it works so much faster than trying to desensitize them for weeks. And that's in our Starting Young course with Karma.
Yes.
Yep, your baby that you bought after the
I
course.
think you have Blue on there too.
And Blue.
Yeah, bathing.
Yeah, so you guys,
really?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think Blue was a superstar. Blue was at Liberty, and he's a 2-year-old, but it took a little while, and then Karma was petrified. You're typical. Okay.
Not no more.
Not no more is right. All right. So what type or level of training is age appropriate? That's another great question I get. What's age appropriate? So what we need to understand about foals, weanlings, yearlings, and 2-year-olds is that they need consistency and repetition. Just like training your young puppy, training a young child, right? They need consistency and repetition till they mature into it, till it connects. And everyone is an individual. So we need consistency and repetition to create habits and learning. Education means it's not done one time or once a week. Now, older horses that've been there, done that, have experience, that's a little different. But for these young babies, we're developing them. We're developing new habits, new ways of being, new ways of associating, new ways of learning. And learning is a gradual step, you guys. It's an education. So we've got to teach them. Well, I will break down what young horses can and should learn at certain ages. What's most important is that we maintain consistency until they get it. So you can't pigeonhole them. You can't say, well, this is a 2-year-old, you're ready to be ridden. No. And maybe we start our young horse under saddle. But believe me, we're just starting them. Doesn't mean we're riding them every day or every week or every month. We're going to introduce it. If they're ready for it, we're going to introduce it. And then we might leave it alone for a long time. Because remember, they're only 2. Where's their emotional maturity, mental maturity, and physical maturity? And because horses are individuals, they learn differently, just like we do. So I can only give you one concrete age to start, and that's immediately, as soon as you can, as soon as they're born. So a lot of people are like, well, when should I start a horse? And I'm like, as soon as they're born. Well, it's a weanling or it's a yearling. Well, start now. I get that all the time. I'm like, start now. Well, what do I start? Well, we're going to talk about it. We provide it in the Young Horse course, and we certainly provide it in much more depth in the Mastery Membership Program. All right, so newborns, they learn immediately, and especially from their mothers and other horses around them. And that's because horses by nature are social learners. If you're able to become part of that social dynamic on a daily basis, they will naturally pick up habits and learning from you. So again, you guys got to start thinking outside the box. What are habits? Write them down. And I also provide them in these courses. So I have them all written down for you guys. What do you want your horse to learn? The ABCs. of how to be with you that's appropriate. So with newborns, it depends on the type of learning, such as what we just talked about with imprinting. This can be done as early as the first day to 3 months, imprinting. So for me, that means I'm with the baby and the mama as much as possible, touching and bonding and just getting the baby used to me and creating positive associations with me. And obviously the mama, so if the mama is one of my horses, you can, I mean, that's obvious. My horse is going to know a lot and have a great relationship with me. But if it's, so that's going to help the baby accept me immediately, more easily. And if it's a mama, oh my gosh, I've worked with so many mamas that were crazy, wild, you know, came from all different experiences. And the baby's going to predominantly be attached to the mama. Good, bad, or ugly. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're very independent and independent thinkers. And that's really cool to see. So the mama might be over there, you know, afraid of something and snorting, and the baby is just standing there, like looking at you and checking you out, completely not even interested in what the mother's doing. But that's very rare indeed. That's one hell of a young horse you're going to want to hang on to. So I don't agree, like Clinton Anderson had, I don't even know if it's still available. He gets, thank God, a lot of bad reviews and publicity. But I remember there was a newborn, it might have been a few weeks old, a month old maybe, and he's got ropes all over it, and he's trying to get it to yield to pressure. You know, he's got a halter on it. I don't think a young horse, you know, as soon as you can get a halter on the young baby, what's the purpose though? I mean, the baby's going to follow the mother regardless. So you've got that on your side, at least till 3 months of age. I mean, it keeps getting, you know, more autonomy and independence as it gets older, and it gets harder and harder. You know, it runs and leaves and comes back, runs and leaves and comes back. But the first month or two, you know, the baby's going to be right by its mama's side for the most part. And so I wanted to get used to ropes, right? You got a lead rope on the mama, the lead rope's dangling down over the baby. Maybe you take the lead rope and just lay it on the baby's back, or your fingers, your hands should be sensitizing and desensitizing the baby. You should be, because ultimately when you go to put the halter on, the baby's going to feel you, going to feel your hands. So when I am working, developing horses, it doesn't matter what age or what type of horse, everything I present to them is an extension of me as far as aids and equipment. So your brushes, your equipment, whips, you name it, blankets, it's just an extension of you. So get them really familiar with you is what I'm saying. And you not just being there, but touching them. And this goes for the legs and find their itchy spots as part of bonding. And, you know, get them used to your hands all over their legs, their bellies. Be careful about it. Keep your body close to theirs, the ability for them. And babies aren't going to kick you right away. If anything, they're just going to move away from you. So you certainly don't want to attack them. You don't want to overwhelm them. You know, everything's done gradually with so much attention to how the baby's receiving it. You know, it gives you a lot of information about that baby. So take your time. Then at 3 to 6 months, you can continue the same practices, but add new learning, such as accepting the halter. Because at this point, you've already been touching the baby all over. You know, they're used to you back behind their ears. Maybe you've already put the lead rope all around them, so they're used to that kind of weight, aid, and a little bit of pressure. So at 3 to 6 months, you know, you've got the halter and the leading. Within the 3 to 6 months, that's when you should also be setting yourself up, whether, like we just mentioned with Atilia, whether you have a little buddy string with you or a small crop, just something that you can start to use as rhythmic pressure, that's going to be your cue for the baby to stop or don't come any closer or move away. So you've got to start having that kind of a language with the baby that, yes, this means you can come in when I'm quiet or I'm sitting down or I'm calling you. Those are my cues for you to come in. but here's my cues for you to stop or, back off. And as long as everything is done rhythmically, remember that's a warning. Even if the rhythm ends up making contact, it's still a warning. It can get stronger. It's when you hit that is becomes aggressive and fearful. And so you can see how we're building and setting things up. Do we have any questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Lydia Katie is asking, is it the same for a creek? Would you get in and play with them?
I love it, Lydia. Great question. Damn straight I'd get in and play. Are you kidding? That was one of the beauties of having my two labs when I got back into horses. I had my two labs 14 years before they passed away a couple of years ago. And so they were puppies together, and they grew up with me coming back into this business. So they were always playing in the water, right? Oh my God, it was awesome. And I had water all around me when I got back into horses in Maryland. I had a pond, and then I had a tidal pond. So I was always chucking. I had to chucking that ball in, and it was great to desensitize a horse to all that noise and ruckus. So yes, the dogs were great at helping the horses in going through puddles, whatever horse came to me. But Lydia, I would always get in the water if I had to, especially when I was retraining horses and they were afraid of any kind of water obstacle that I had. I would walk through it. But eventually, I also, and I'm teaching guys this in the program, how to send them. So this is where you can start using the send on your, sending your horse and working with thresholds. So it doesn't mean your horse is going to be sent right through or over that obstacle, that water, but you could send them up to it. And you want to make it playful. Yeah, you want to make it a good experience. So yeah, I'll use whatever. The dogs will help, other horses will help. When I had my pond built, and it was really cool. Sundance was always the most courageous with stuff, especially on the trail ride. And she was the first one, and she was 3. She was new to me. They were all my 3 horses were new to me at the time. And she went straight in, and she just started pawing and playing. And then she was laying down like a water buffalo and trying to roll. And then the boys went right in. Well, the dogs were already in there. So yeah, we're making that a positive experience association. And then there's always social connection and engagement between you and the horse. And if you can get other horses or your dogs, that'll help tremendously. Great question. Okay. So we talked about 3 to 6 months. And at that point, you definitely want to be haltering them, taking the halter off. I do not believe in leaving a halter on, especially if you're developing a young horse the way that I'm teaching you. Your relationship is going to be amazing. So I don't want to leave, especially halters where they can get their feet stuck or get caught. But you want to be able to take the halter on and off. You want to start attaching the lead rope and working with them coming with you. It's kind of like the way I trained my dogs. I didn't train with treats, my dogs either. And I didn't force them. I didn't have a harsh collar on them, or I didn't force them. They came with me when my dogs learned to be led on a leash. They came with me. And so with horses, it's the same principle. Come on, come on, come on. And then I'll add a little bit of that pull with the come on, come on. So their whole association with the pull, there's no opposition. Do you see how we're just going about this totally different? It's so counterintuitive to what you're being taught out there. It's so different, you guys. So it's not about pulling them and putting ropes behind their butt and pulling on the butt and pulling on the behind the pole, the halter. It's about changing their association. And you might need to do that in some situations. You always have those techniques to help, but you really want the horse to be open, to stay an open learner, not to go into their self-preservation mode of panic or freeze and just completely shut down. So those are some good things to keep in mind. When they're 6 months to a year, boy, we're up in an hour already, they can start learning easy things like being ponied off of the mom. I do not recommend, if I am raising a mom and a baby together, I do not recommend separating them for a long time, you guys. And I'll allow them, mom knows when to stop them from, to wean them. The mother knows. So I have no problem if it's 2 years. And definitely before the age of 2, the baby is going to start being taken away from the mom gradually. And at that point, it's in a way that they can still see each other. So they're separated, but not isolated. And at that point, I already have an amazingly strong bond with the baby. So there's really not a lot of panic that's going to happen. It's really horrible for the young horses when they have no one else to bond with, and they're completely stripped of their mother. So you can have other horses that can help with that separation. But it's, I've had a lot of people ask me, well, I've got a 6-month-old and I want to start training the mom. What do I do with the 6-month-old? Right now, you got to take the 6-month-old with you. Or if you've got the round pen and the round pen's in a paddock area, allow the baby right there on the outside of the round pen where it can be right there and see mama, and you're right on the inside. That's going to be stressful enough, believe me. And that might even be too much for you to handle mama and her worrying about the baby. So everything just depends. And it depends on your skill level, and it depends on what's going on, the information. What do you do? Do you know what to do with that? And you can change stuff at any time. You could start off that way with mama in the round pen, the baby on the outside, and it goes to hell because you don't know sometimes. Oh, I didn't expect that. No problem. Let them together. Do your best, and you just don't want to stress either one out, and there's thresholds. Physical distance is a threshold. And so if there's a lot of distance, it's going to be a big threshold. It's going to be a big stressor. So you've got to figure out the feel and timing of those thresholds. You got to play with them. And then, so that's 6 months to a year. You're going to start, there's lots of things you can do with the baby that you can do with the mama. So you can, leave the mom right there in the round pen while you're starting to work on more leading with the baby in the round pen. Or you can work on some just movement, so to speak, because they're still so young, you don't want to be running them around, nothing like that. But, you can include mama, or you can have somebody hold mama, or you can lightly tie mama while you work the baby around mama. And everything we're doing is leading and teaching the baby to back up and away from you, get comfortable with pressure, sending them out. We're doing all the basics to set them up for free lunging and lunging when they get older. And also we're developing the left brain of the young horse when we start doing these types of exercises. We're already been working on the relationship. And then 1 to 2 years, more education. Light round pen work at the walk. You can start walking them around, seeing how they are with natural, their natural environment. You can take them for a walk down all of this. If you can handle your 6-month-old to a yearling, take them for a walk and use all of this partner walking that I teach, backing them up, sending them, allowing them to graze, investigate trees, take them outside of their comfort if they can handle it. A lot of times you guys get these weanlings and they don't come with the mama. But if the mom's there, it's going to be hard. So you're going to have to kind of do everything with the mama for a while. Just know that the baby's learning. And then separation is a whole nother thing. But if you guys have these 6-month-old and yearlings and they're already good with the halter, and then teach them how to lead, teach them how to send, teach them how to back up and respect your space. And you can start doing stuff with them, a lot of stuff. Set up obstacles, take them for walks, include them in on everything. But I want you to be safe. They've got to be able to respect your space, and they have to work on these key core beginner exercises, or you're going to get run over, run down, or dragged. This is a baby. One of the best examples, my Blue is almost 2.5 years old now. And because I'm with him every day, we have a relationship every day. Either I'm bathing him or grooming him. We do small, subtle things for consistency to develop good habits. But I don't round pen him. I'm not doing any intense learning or education with him. We're just maintaining good habits right now in a good relationship, good connection. So what happens? I'm leading him around and he hasn't been out with the big herd who he plays with. So I open the gate and he goes flying out the gate because he forgets he's on line with me. And I usually go with it, or I let the rope drift long enough and pull him back, and he's like, oh crap. Sometimes he's like, what, you know, but he forgets, and he's young, and we haven't done a lot of anything else. So those are kind of the things I'm trying to prepare all of you to understand, if you don't have any experience, is what to predict with these young horses. You know, it's just like a young puppy. They're being so obedient, and then they forget, they get all excited, and they start jumping, right? They start jumping on you. It's like a young kid. I get my 12-year-old all excited, and he forgets things. And then, like in the pool this weekend, and he does some stupid things that could hurt me or hurt himself, but he gets excited. And so, you know, you got to be careful. You can't yell at them because you got them all hyped up, whether it's your kid, your dog, or your horse. You know, you've got to have some common sense with this stuff, because if I yell at him, he's kind of like, well, what do you mean? We just were having a great, happy time. I don't know what I did wrong. They forget so much of this. It's like you can read so much until you've got to experience it too. So that's stuff that isn't being taught out there, like how to prepare your mind for the unexpected and how to handle it. It's one thing. And these young animals, they're gonna lose it every once in a while. Do not expect them to be totally obedient. And even if they're doing what you ask, there's still gonna be this, that, or the other going on until it just becomes second nature to them, ingrained in them. And that all depends on maturity level. It can take years. One of the young horses that I bought is a 5-month-old that was a nephew to my great late Smokey. And I kept him a colt until he was 1.5 years old, and I sold him to my neighbor only when I signed the contract that he would stay in development with me until he was under saddle at the age of 4. But wait, so at 1.5 years old, we had done, Chelsea and I had done, one of my apprentices, a lot of, you know, he grew up with the environment and same kind of bonding. And he definitely had been introduced. We really waited till about 1.5 years. So he knew he was great with the farrier, great with bathing, great with being led, no problem with the basics. And then at 1.5 years, I decided, wow, you know, you've got a lot of thoroughbred kind of sensitivity in you, even though you're registered paint. That's interesting, I know. They look like a thoroughbred, like his papa. His mom was a brown and white Tabiano paint. So long story short, I'm like, well, you need more. You need more discipline to kind of get you to think more, instead of you're turning into more of a reactive horse with the sensitivity level. And so we started to put him into a weekly training, same stuff, but light, no more than half an hour. And eventually I was sitting on him bareback and with his rope halter, and just teaching him to just stand, and me all over him and loving on him, and teaching to go, teaching to steer, and teaching to stop. And so maybe 3 days a week at the age of 2, I rode him for 15 minutes. No saddle, hell no, no way, no bit, never. But just teaching him the basics that are going to be so important in how to become responsive to those basics, so that you're not kicking to go, pulling to whoa, or trying to get him to stand still at the mounting block. And there were many days where he was really up, so to speak, and we didn't ride. I didn't ride him. I didn't get on. And we just did lots of slow, methodical work to get to like reprogram, rehardwire his brain. So there's a lot. We teach a lot of that in the Young Horse course, and then of course the Master Membership. So I'm going to be wrapping it up, guys, and we're going to continue the rest of this for tomorrow. Plus we've got even more to talk about. Do we have any more questions real quick? All right. Well, thank you. We are also going to be including both these podcasts in our Starting Young Horse course to add to that course. So if any of you are interested, we're going to give you some links to these courses that are going to teach you so much of this. Oh my gosh, amazing stuff. And thank you. We look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. May you always be one with your horse. Okay, bye-bye.